Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a Books Beside My Bed video for you, which is where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. Welcome if you're new, welcome back if you've been here before. I'm really excited to get into the 4 books for this wrap up. This week has been kind of weird because it was the transition week back to on-site learning, which was partial on-site, partial off-site, and it's messed with my brain. So we'll see how coherent I am in this video, to be perfectly honest, because there is one book in here that I actually cannot remember the plot of, which probably tells you a little bit about the book. The other thing is that this is the Books Beside My Bed video before my 200th episode of Books Beside My Bed, which is kind of amazing. So I've been filming this series now for nearly 4 years and it blows my mind a little bit when I think about it like that. So in celebration of my 200th episode next week, if you have any questions that you want to ask or anything that you want to know, let me know in the comments. And if I get some questions, I will answer them in a little bit of a Q&A in that video. So this is my reading week from the 16th until the 22nd of October. I read 4 things this week and I just realized that I forgot to write down how many pages. So for memory, I think it's around 1,200 pages total for all 4 books, and my yearly reading total is 422 books. I have to say that this week one of my most anticipated books for the year dropped, and that was Well Matched by Jen DeLuca, which is the 3rd book in the Well Met series, and I was so excited. I had pre-ordered it on my Kindle and it downloaded by the end of the day, and that was exactly what I needed this week, was to have that anticipated book just come into my life. So as I said, it is the 3rd book in the Well Met series. It is the story of April, who is the sister of Emily from the 1st book, and April is a single mum. She's just turned 40 and her daughter is about to graduate from high school and go off to college. So she is about to become an empty nester, and she is looking around her house and has decided that it's time to move out. She's been in this small town. She stayed there because her daughter had friends in the school and that's where her daughter wanted to grow up. But now she's ready to move on because she doesn't have close friends there. She's played it very close to her chest. And then Mitch, who is the high school PE teacher and one of the participants in the town's Renaissance Fair, comes over to ask her for a favor. And he asks her to basically be his fake date to a family event. And in exchange, he'll help her fix up her house, which she's trying to fix to sell at a much better price. So they agree and they have this fake dating, only one bed situation going on initially. And it's great because she is the older woman in the relationship. He's 31, she's 40. I love it because they're both adults. And while they're both kind of at different points in their life, they're also ready for something else. And I just adored it. Mitch and April have been hinted at since the 1st book. So this is the slowest of slow burn relationships in the series so far, and I utterly adored it. So while their fake dating relationship becomes something more, it's then also complicated because the Renaissance Fair happens, it's the summer, her daughter's involved, and this year April decides to also take more of an interest in it, and so she volunteers as a ticket seller for the event and then finds herself being drawn into the world of the Renaissance Fair, which she has previously managed to avoid because she is not the most social of people, which I can relate. Then I read Bargain with the Beast by Naima Simone, which is the one that I can barely remember. So it is the story of Gwendolyn and Xavier St. James, and I'm pretty sure my notes say that there was a scarred hero, there was some blackmail, and she was his brother's fiance, but the brother has since died. Oh, okay. Now I remember. So Gwendolyn works for sort of this non-profit-ish type organization, and it's failing. She needs some grant money, and Xavier's family provides it. He was previously the playboy of the town and now he's been scarred and so he's been scorned. And so she asks him for his help in applying for this grant, and he basically says he'll do it if she will be his sex slave for 7 days. And then she gets sick and so that time is extended and they have to find a way to work with each other. So I think that's basically the plot. Here I will say there is mentions of cheating off page in terms of his ex-fiance cheated on him. Yeah, I found the writing to be a little bit over the top, and clearly I've been able to remember it even though I said I couldn't. But it was just one of those stories that I started reading and I'd kind of gotten to the 50% mark, wasn't enjoying it, but just finished it off because it was so short. Unfortunately, this one was a bit of a miss for me, but I don't know. I think a lot of people will enjoy it. I just don't think it was the right book at the right time for me at the moment. And then another one that was kind of similar was A Thorn in the Saddle by Rebecca Weatherspoon, which I'm really disappointed about because I really love Rebecca Weatherspoon, and this one just didn't do very much for me at all. It is the third book in the Cowboys of California series, which part of that may be the problem that I haven't read any of those other books before. Although that said, there was a fairly decent recap at the start of the book, so you get caught up really quickly. I received this as a review copy on NetGalley. I requested it because it was Rebecca Weatherspoon and I love her writing. But yeah, this one just was okay for me. It is the story of Jesse Pleasant, who is the oldest of the Pleasant brothers, and they have a ranch in California, and it's been in their family for ages, and he's sort of the rock of the family. And he's very close with everyone in his family. He lives on property with his brother and his grandmother. They all have separate homes, but they live on the grounds of the ranch. And he gets home from something and he goes to his grandmother's house and walks in on her having a moment with her new beau and flips his absolute lid, which in turn causes the man that his grandmother is seeing's daughter to come and rip him a new one. And it turns out that she's someone that he had a crush on in primary school. And so her name is Lily Grace. She has recently returned to town because she's quit her job and left a relationship because she was sexually harassed at her job. She tried to confide in her partner and he brushed it off. So she left. She's been staying with her dad and she doesn't really know what she wants to do moving forward. But she gets furious when she finds out that Jesse has attacked her father. And so it sort of goes on from there. So there's a bit of a hate to love element. And then we end up with a charity auction in this small town where Jesse is being auctioned off and something happens at the event and Lily Grace is really upset by what happens. And so she places the highest bid on him and then he saves her when she falls into a pool and she can't swim. And then they start to become closer and there are sex lessons involved and swimming lessons and all sorts of things. And maybe there was just too much going on for me. Again, this has been a really tough week, so I don't know whether that's affecting it. I know that I struggled a little bit with the formatting of the e-arc, but I'm not counting that necessarily as part of the problem because I've read plenty of those, so I know how to read through when the e-arc is not properly formatted. But definitely the story and the characters, I sort of felt very removed from the situation. So it could be a combination of the fact that I hadn't read the previous two books. It could be that I was tired, but again, I wasn't as invested in this book as I would have liked to have been. And then I read a book that was really surprising to me for two reasons. Mostly because it was an international young adult book and a historical fantasy, which are not things that I dip my toe into very often now anymore. But a little while back, I was approached by a publisher to see if I was interested in reviewing The Keeper of Night by Kylie Lee Barker, which is a new young adult historical fiction story set in 1800s England and Japan. And it sounded kind of intriguing, kind of spooky, and honestly it was the spooky side of it that it was of interest to me. And I think I may have a physical copy of this coming, but I did read the NetGalley arc. This story features reapers, both from England and then the Japanese equivalent Shinigami, as well as yokai demons. Some really cool concepts around death and the reaping of souls. And our heroine of the story, Ren, is half Japanese, half British. And she has been raised as a reaper by her father because something happened to her mother. But in England, as part of the Reapers, which is this giant organization of people, she's treated like an outcast because she is not fully one thing or the other. And she has strange abilities that the Reapers don't have, and so she's been told to suppress that. And even her father has disavowed her in terms of not acknowledging that she's his child. He has a second child, which is her brother Nevin, who she's really close with, and he loves her so much that he chooses, when he's of age, he chooses to live with her and not his father. Anyway, at the start of the book, something happens and she is bullied and attacked by other Reapers, and she reacts out of instinct, and so she has to flee England. Nevin decides to go with her and they end up traveling to Japan. And the way that the Reapers and the Shinigami work, they have sort of a god of death who is the head of their sub-branch, I suppose, of Reapers. And she has to go and approach the goddess of death for the Shinigami. And when she does, she is tasked with killing 3 yokai in order to earn her place as a Shinigami. And I hope that I'm saying that right. And if I'm not, I apologize. That's entirely my own fault. She is helped in her quest by her brother, but also by the mysterious Hiro, who she meets before she enters the palace of the goddess of death. And it's very creepy and very atmospheric, and it features so much Japanese myth and folklore which was just really fantastic. I loved that element of it. It was great. There are moments where the pacing is a little bit off. And again, this one also had the NetGalley formatting issues. So a couple of times it jumped forward in time and it was kind of hard to see where the chapter breaks were. But that said, I really enjoyed the reading experience. And apparently this is the first book of a duet. The ending, you do get left off in an interesting place. I thought it was very well done. There's a bit of a twist at the end. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Do be aware in this one, there is ableism, racism, bullying, there is mentions of cannibalism, general death, murder, and there's also the attempted murder of a child as well. So just be aware of that going into it. It fits within the context of the story and you'll understand it when you get to it, but it is kind of intense, but very readable. All right, so those are the books that I read this week. In the comments, let me know if you have read any of these books or if you're planning on picking any of them up. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave any emoji that you would like in the comments. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.